covering Utah State sports like no one else. News Talk KVNU, 102 FM, 610 AM.
KVNU News Time is 5:03. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by U&I Furniture. Last year was the 40th anniversary for the Family Place Utah, and they were featured every month on KVNU's For the People program. Now they are in their 41st year, but they're not slowing down at all. On For the People on Monday, Mental Health First Aid Project Director for the Family Place Utah, Carrie Phillips, was our guest. They have an event coming up that she told us about at the end of this month.
As the Mental Health First Aid Project Director, part of my role is organizing community events that both offer resources to the community as well as helping them get out and have fun, do things that will help take care of mental health for individuals and families. This particular activity is going to be Saturday, September 30th from 10 to 6, and we are offering free entrance into Zootah for the entire day.
She said they'll have resources available. You can ask questions. They'll have snacks. This is all in honor of Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. When it comes to openly talking about mental health challenges, Phillips said it depends on the age group.
So I also work as an instructor at Utah State University, and I found working with students that they're starting to be much more open about discussing mental health challenges as a group. And, when I go and work with middle-aged to older adults, it's something that's still, generally speaking, more difficult for them. So we just kind of have to approach it in different ways and meet people where they're at.
You can register for mental health first aid classes through the Family Place website. And Philip said there's one this week. In fact, it's tomorrow and Thursday. That's a virtual class.
Yeah, and it's a really wonderful opportunity when we can do it virtually. We get to work with people from all over the country who are interested in these things.
Oh, wow.
So if you attend a virtual class, you get to connect with people that you probably never would otherwise have met. And
Sure.
If you come in person, then you connect here as part of our community. And there are definitely beautiful things about both.
And you can get more information at thefamilyplaceutah.org. KVNU News Time is 5:05. KVNU weather for tonight, mostly clear, low around 50. Slight chance of showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon on Wednesday. Slight chance of rain showers after midnight Wednesday night. Thursday, sunny, upper 70s for the high. It's been to 81. It's 79 right now at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology. Bring back the sounds you've been missing. Schedule a free hearing evaluation with Dr. Paul Danes at Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
U&I Furniture has always been here to give you great value for your money. When it comes to home furnishings, it really is always a better buy at U&I. And right now, U&I is closing out last year's model mattresses. Closeouts on new models and displays, too. Memory foam, innerspring, and hybrids from a number of different name brand manufacturers. And ask U&I to show you this popular copper-infused mattress that sleeps cooler. And did you know U&I has a good selection of sheets and mattress protectors, too? U&I Furniture, over 90 years in downtown Logan. There's always a better buy at U&I.
KVNU News Time is 5:06. Governor Spencer Cox left Utah yesterday bound for New Hampshire to convene a meeting of some members of the National Governors Association. While in Manchester today, Cox is scheduled to participate in NGA sessions to promote his Disagree Better initiative. Utah's governor will also use his eastbound trip to speak to students at the prestigious Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University on Wednesday in Cambridge, Massachusetts. In July, the chief executives of 55 U.S. states, territories, and commonwealths gathered in Atlantic City to elect Cox as chair of the National Governors Association. He took advantage of that opportunity to announce his main policy initiative dubbed Disagree Better, Healthy Conflict for Better Policy for the coming year. Cox said not everybody agrees on every issue, but He said we have to find a way to disagree better. Cox's initiative is designed to help Americans bridge the partisan divide and adopt a more positive approach to political and social discourse. The governor added that he hoped that Disagree Better would model a more positive and optimistic way of work through America's problems. Founded in 1908, the National Governors Association is the voice of the nation's governors and one of the most respected public policy organizations in the country. Members come to the association from across the political spectrum, but NGA itself is bipartisan. And the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has released an updated rendering of the reconstructed Kona, Hawaii temple. The temple was first dedicated by President Gordon B. Hinckley in January 2000. According to church officials, it will close in October for extensive renovations. They said the upgrades are expected to be completed by late 2025. Planned upgrades will grow the temple from 9,500 square feet to 12,000 square feet. KVNU News Time is 5:09. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
Did you know a block dryer vent is a real fire hazard? According to the Consumer Product Safety Commission, there are tens of thousands of dryer exhaust duct fires annually, leading to many injuries and death. You should have your dryer hose and the area around it cleaned once a year and inspect the vent and hose for any blockages at least every 6 months. Don't wait for disaster to strike because your dryer vent is blocked. Give John Henson a call at the Duct Hunter. Call 770-4813 today.
Breathe better, save money, protect your home. We are the Duct Hunter.
Are you concerned about the state of our national security, open borders, the looming China threat, the strain on our munition supply due to the war in Ukraine? Does low military recruitment mean a mandatory draft is imminent? These issues affect all of us, but particularly if you have children. Come listen to a true expert, David Pine, shed light on these topics. David serves as a deputy director of the EMP Task Force, a congressional advisory board, this Thursday the 14th at 6:30 p.m. at the Old Courthouse in Logan at 200 North Main. This event is free and open to everyone.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you prevent wildfires.
Dude, I've got this. I've been camping since I was 5 years old.
But I am a camping influencer.
You know what? I'll bet you $5. Assistant Smokey, what is the best way to put out a campfire?
To put out a campfire, drown with water, stir, drown again. Then make sure the fire is out cold by feeling with the back of your hand.
Wait, really?
I'll take the $5.
Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Feels like Tuesday. Tuesday has no feel.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Hour 2 of today's show. Some law enforcement-related stories and more to get to here, including Davis County District Attorney Troy Rollins ruling that earlier this year the shooting of a suspected sovereign citizen in Farmington by police officers was deemed justified. That news out just earlier today as well. We'll talk about how the district attorney came to this conclusion and some of the media coverage around this whole incident that occurred earlier this year. Just a tragic, completely unnecessary incident. But yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit. Also, Utah lawmakers are considering making changes to a 2018 law that made police quotas a thing of the past here in Utah, basically saying police quotas are illegal in this state. Lawmakers are thinking undoing some of that after recent controversy around some practices and policies of Ogden City Police that got the attention of Fox 13 News, who did a couple of investigative reports on it. The conversation since has it's been pretty eye-opening, to be honest with you, and it does raise some questions about policing and policy in general, where it's kind of difficult to meet all of the expectations of both the public and running an effective police department. So we'll talk about that later on in the show as well. This one to start things off here, well, first off, 753-5868. because I have a feeling some folks might want to vent about this one. I do. Just reading the story this week in the Tribune, I vented in my head quite a bit. Although, honestly, none of us should be surprised. And let me preface all of this by saying, according to the CEO of Rocky Mountain Power, no decision has been made to for sure go down this route. But in interviews with the Tribune and a subsequent article, kind of a follow-up interview with the Deseret News, the CEO hasn't ruled out going down this route. So no decision has been made to for sure go down this route, but it's not ruled out. It could still happen. And what it comes down to basically is Rocky Mountain Power's parent company, Pacific Corp, was faced with a lawsuit accusing them of gross negligence. This was there have been a few, to be honest with you. They were found liable for potentially billions of dollars in damages in Oregon's 2020 wildfires. That was a lawsuit, and the accusation was basically they were told by the state, by land managers, by public safety officials that this windstorm was coming, everything was far too dry, and they needed to cut the grid for a period of time. And the lawsuit claims they didn't, and then when they finally did, it was far too late. The fire was already ignited by down power lines. They lost that lawsuit quickly. A jury awarded $90 million to survivors of the 2020 Santiam Canyon fire. They had, again in the lawsuit, accused Pacific Corp of gross negligence and creating a nuisance for failing to shut off power lines during the Labor Day windstorm. The lawsuit was ruled a class action, and that means thousands of others can still join the class action up until that window closes and receive damages. And estimates are that the full settlement in the end could run as high as $11 billion. That was on June 12th. On June 21st, the Salt Lake Tribune, through a public records request, found that, now again, those lawsuits were against Pacific Corp, Rocky Mountain Power's parent company. On June 21st, Rocky Mountain Power, a public records request filed on June 21st a request with the Utah Public Service Commission to create a, quote, deferred accounting order authorization. The company create a deferred accounting order authorizing the company to record a regulatory asset associated with the incremental costs associated with third-party liability due to wildfires in Oregon. That's a long, complicated sentence to say basically they might pay off that award to the class action lawsuit plaintiffs through our power bills. They might jack up our rates. Our bills might go up so that they can pay off a lawsuit they lost when a jury determined Pacific Corp was negligent. Let that sink in for a second. Now, the application that was filed June 21st was then withdrawn, but Rocky Mountain Power CEO Gary Hugavine acknowledged in an interview this week that the company hasn't ruled it out. They could still be seeking to recover some Oregon costs in this lawsuit from Utah ratepayers. He told the Salt Lake Tribune that's not something we've decided. But again, he didn't rule it out. But he said the company is in an open dialogue with Utah's legislative leadership, and they'll be meeting soon with Governor Spencer Cox. And he said, unprecedented risk from wildfires across the West have forced utilities to consider measures they might not have before. He said, this is a very scary situation. We want to talk more about it. It's bigger than one company or one state. It's an issue for the entire West. Salt Lake Tribune explains deferred accounts are the state of Utah's mechanism for allowing utilities to recover costs from unforeseen events. The accounts track expenses that are not included in the utility's basic rates, but still may be considered a cost that can be passed on to ratepayers, the Tribune reports. So if the final $11 billion estimate actually comes to be, as again, the window for people to sign on to this class action lawsuit is still open, It will rival the $13.5 billion settlement Pacific Gas and Electric agreed to pay in their 2019 after they were held liable for 4 major fires in California between 2015 and 2018. So that could come down on ratepayers in the West as well through Pacific Gas and Electric. This is a pretty big deal, and it's complicated. You can't. I don't think it's fair to just point the finger at the power companies and say, "Oh, you shouldn't do that." Although I do think they shouldn't do that. This is a multi-state, regional, maybe even half the country problem, and it's tied to climate change. It's tied to populations expanding out into we talk about it here in Cache Valley, our urban wildfire mix, as they referred to, or urban wildland mix, is an increasing problem. 50 years ago, not so much. Everyone was living closer to downtowns. Everyone was more tucked into the city, less up on the foothills, less in the mouth of the canyons. If you've seen the houses going up, further and further up Sardine Canyon, and a big development that's going to be going there in the current location of the old Sherwood Hills spot. Houses there. That means power lines. That means, potential for human-caused wildfire. Now, imagine this happening all over the state, all over the West, in Nevada, Colorado, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, Arizona somewhat, not as much, Oregon, Northern California. So this is a growing problem. And then at the same time, with climate change and things drying out more, longer drought seasons and things like that, wildfires obviously have increased in frequency. Now, in this case, I think what does make it different is that this is a case where, and the CEO doesn't address this in his comments to the Tribune, and I think that's telling, but this is a case where the power companies have been found negligent and therefore liable for exorbitant costs of these wildfires. Obviously, in a situation where you're found negligent, there's something you could have done differently, right? That's what makes me mad about this. So I'm sympathetic to the fact that wildfires are going to be happening more often, and that's just a fact of life right now, and will be for some time. And that does put utilities and other entities in a different situation where, maybe their business model becomes untenable at a certain point. No one will insure them. That's also an issue that's happening right now. Insurance companies that insure entities like a big power utility or a big gas utility are actually shrinking their coverage because it's costing them so much money to insure them. So they're reducing what they cover. So the companies themselves are more on the line if they get sued and lose than ever before. So it's a compounded problem in that respect as well. That said, and again, I'm very sympathetic to that. I think that really paints a picture in which you can look at these utilities and say, look, they provide a very necessary service. We need them to do that, and it's getting harder for them to operate in various respects. And there's my sympathy part. The part where I'm not sympathetic is in these lawsuits. You were found negligent. I'm sorry. You were found by a jury to have been negligent. How do you justify passing that on to your ratepayers? That should be absorbed into profits entirely. And if that means profits take a hit for several years, that is just the way of don't be negligent. This is specifically in the situation in Oregon. The reason they were found negligent is they were told by public safety officials, by state leaders, by forestry managers, you need to cut the grid for Labor Day weekend. There's a windstorm. It's getting worse. It's too dry out there to have a single line go down, and we know the wind will be high enough to take at least one down. Cut the power. And they told them this enough in advance. They could have let their ratepayers know, hey, we're going to be cutting power for a day, maybe two, at least a day. I know that's inconvenient for everyone, but it's far better than the wildfire that ensued instead and took all those houses out anyway and took the grid down anyway. So PacifiCorp was found negligent for not doing that. And now for them to say through their various state entities like Rocky Mountain Power here in Utah, they're looking at paying off those class action lawsuit awards given by juries to those who sued the power companies for negligence. They're thinking of passing that on to ratepayers in other states. I don't know. It is legal in Utah. It is legal in every state in the West. There's a question about whether it's legal in Arizona, but this actually isn't something being considered there right now. What do you think about this? Again, I can see there is a part of me that's very sympathetic to these companies where I think it's unrealistic and foolish even to take a hard line because they are up against a very different environment. Wildfires are going to be more frequent. That affects gas and power companies the most. They are also finding, the companies that will insure them or the offerings of the insurance itself are shrinking steadily because it's of these risks. Climate change means, longer droughts, drier areas, larger dry areas with more potential wildfire risk. And, of course, more people living out in areas where human-caused wildfires are going to be more frequent. All of this compounding into a situation where these companies, we can't lose these companies. We need utilities to operate, right? And they need to make a profit of some kind. But I'm sorry. If you're found liable in a lawsuit for negligence, you absorb that loss in the profit margins, not by burying it into increased rates on the bills for your ratepayers. Again, CEO says they haven't decided to do this. PacifiCorp or Rocky Mountain Power here in Utah specifically hasn't been decided. But they did file paperwork in June opening the door to doing it. And the CEO did not rule it out in 2 different interviews. What do you think? I can see why it's maybe fair, even necessary. And then again, there's a part of me that says, nah, you were found negligent. Take that out of the profit margin, not our power bills. 753-5868 or shoot us a text at KVNU FTP on Google Talk. And we'll be back right after this.
Intermountain Budge ENT Clinic has an experienced and caring team of physicians and staff to assist you with all of your ear, nose, and throat concerns, including head and neck surgery. Doctors Kaiser and Wilson and their staff at Intermountain Budge ENT Clinic will work together to provide excellent care and support throughout the entire surgery process, from your pre-op visit to your full recovery. And they accept all insurance. For more information about Doctors Kaiser or Wilson, search Budge Clinic ENT or call 435-716-1420. Local care with Intermountain expertise.
I'm Larry Gelwigs, the getaway guru for Morris Columbus Travel and Princess Cruises with the biggest cruise promotion of the year, including free open bar, free Wi-Fi, and free prepaid gratuities. Sail with Princess Cruises and get free. And for the best travel deals on the planet, give us a call at Morris Columbus Travel.
Come on and get away, Morris Columbus.
I lived alone and was having problems with my landlord. He's a creep. One night I'm watching TV and I hear my landlord letting himself in. Hey, get out. You can't keep coming in.
I'm just here to fix your fridge and spend some time together.
Get out. I'm reporting you.
Don't make a federal case of it.
A federal case? Sexual harassment in housing is against federal law. If you are harassed, file a complaint with HUD. Go to HUD.gov/fair housing. If you fear for your safety, call 911. Fair housing. The law is on your side. A message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Mixed reactions in the texts. About an equal number of people saying they fall more on the sympathetic side. Let them recover the costs of these lawsuits, even if it means higher power bills for those of us in Utah and other states. Because, again, they do take these risks, providing a public service we can't do without. I agree, but let's not ignore the fact that they do make money doing this, and a lot of it. The story, again, for those just tuning in, Utah ratepayers, maybe The CEO said they've withdrawn the paperwork after the Salt Lake Tribune discovered it in a public records request having been filed in June by Rocky Mountain Power and their parent company, Pacific Corp. The paperwork would have allowed the company, through ratepayers' bills here in Utah and other states, to recover the costs of a more than $10 billion, for sure, possibly as high as $13 billion class action lawsuit filed against them for negligence, sparking wildfires in California and Oregon. This is a lot of money for Pacific Corp, and of course they're going to try to recoup their costs somewhere. I'm saying even if they have to spread that out, because the courts, of course, are going to say you don't have to pay this all in one big lump sum, they could spread it out over 5 years, 10 years if necessary, to pay off whatever the awards end up being when they lost this lawsuit in which they were found to have been negligent by a jury. Spread that out over 10 years of cutting into their own profits before you consider jacking up rates here in Utah to pay that off. But the paperwork they filed in June it opens the door to doing exactly that. They've withdrawn the paperwork, and the CEO says they have not decided to do this, neither the parent company, Pacific Corp, or Rocky Mountain Power specifically, but they did not rule it out either in interviews with the Tribune and Deseret News. Again, about an even split of listeners here. Some saying they sympathize and we can't afford to lose these companies. I agree. And an equal number saying they're with me on, no, you take this out of your profit margin before you even consider raising power rates here in Utah where you were found negligent. Because here's my thing on that. If you were found negligent in a lawsuit, that means a jury felt there was something you could have done differently to avoid the situation, and you just decided not to. In this case, it's very clear they didn't want to cut power and anger customers that way. So they took the risk. The windstorms blew the power lines down despite warnings from forest managers and public safety begging Pacific Corp to cut the power to the grid that day. And they chose not to. They took the risk, sparked a huge wildfire, and then lost a lawsuit. That is not the fault of Utah ratepayers. None of that. That's my take. Again, even split from our listeners. We can keep the conversation going if you want to weigh in by phone. On the other side, 753-5868. Now a look at the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 5:30, and the news is brought to you by Logan Extermination. A 38-year-old Logan man has been sentenced to prison for molesting a teenage girl and other crimes. Stephen Anthony Hernandez was ordered to serve a term of 1 to 15 years after telling the court he had definitely made some mistakes. Hernandez was sentenced on Monday in Logan's 1st District Court. He had previously accepted a plea deal, pleading guilty to forcible sexual abuse, a second-degree felony, possession of a dangerous weapon by a restricted person, and possession or use of a controlled substance, both third-degree felonies. According to prosecutors, North Park police officers received a report of the sex offense on July 21st, 2022. The victim's mother explained that her daughter had been molested by Hernandez, who was a family acquaintance. The 15-year-old girl was later interviewed by forensic investigators at the Cache Children's Justice Center. She explained how Hernandez had come into her room and touched her inappropriately. The incidents had occurred over several days while her mother was out of town. A man was mauled by a grizzly bear Saturday in Montana and is now being treated at a Salt Lake City hospital. The Gallatin County Sheriff's Office said in a press release Saturday that the grizzly attacked a hunter tracking a deer. Another member of the hunter's party placed a 911 call to Madison County Dispatch, saying the attacked person needed immediate medical attention. The hunter was transported via Lifelight helicopter to Bozeman Regional Medical Center. According to a GoFundMe set up by his daughter, the victim is Rudy Norlander. He owns an ATV rental business in Big Sky, Montana. Norlander was helping some hunters track down a deer they had shot when he saw a smaller grizzly. Instinctively, he pulled out his firearm in hopes of scaring away the grizzly, but before he could even have time to react, a different 10-foot tall and far more aggressive bear was on him. The bear left him with a large scratch on his chest, bites on his arms and legs, and tore off his lower jaw. The others in the hunting party were eventually able to scare the bear off. After undergoing surgery to stabilize him at the hospital in Bozeman, he was flown to University of Utah Hospital. His daughter says he is currently in critical but stable condition. Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks said investigators found a cached animal carcass near the attack site, indicating the attack was likely defensive in nature. The Fish and Wildlife Parks have not yet located the bear, and they continue to investigate the incident. And the Biden administration is recommending changes to a 151-year-old law that governs mining for copper, gold, and other hard rock minerals on U.S.-owned lands, including making companies pay royalties on what they extract. A plan released today by the Interior Department also calls for the creation of a mine leasing system and coordination of permitting efforts among a range of federal agencies. The White House has been pushing to boost domestic mining for minerals needed for electric vehicles, solar panels, and other clean energy. Under terms of an 1872 law, the U.S. does not collect royalties on minerals extracted from federal lands. The Biden plan would impose royalties of 4 to 8% on hard rock minerals. KVNU News Time is 5:34.
It's been a crazy few months with big rainstorms fueling the weeds in your lawn, garden, or empty lot, and the spiders coming inside to beat the heat. You need help. Let Logan Extermination take care of those pesky weeds and unwanted pests with an exterior lawn application and interior treatment for bugs. Call Logan Extermination today before your home becomes enemy territory. Logan Extermination, 752-8450.
Weed control starts at $45. Interior spider spray starts at $95.
5 former Memphis police officers now face federal civil rights charges in the fatal beating of Tyree Nichols. U.S. Attorney Kevin Ritz says they face federal civil rights, conspiracy, and obstruction offenses.
The first 2 counts alleging civil rights violations resulting in death carry a sentence of up to life in prison.
9 months ago, the officers were recorded on video beating Nichols during a traffic stop. He died in a hospital 3 days later. CDC Director Dr. Mandy Cohen has signed off on the new COVID boosters and recommends that everyone 6 months and older get it. The top Republican in the Senate refused to comment directly on House Speaker Kevin McCarthy's announcement that he's opened an impeachment inquiry into President Biden.
I don't have any advice to give to the House. They've got a totally different set of challenges than we do.
Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says one priority for Senate Republicans is to avert a government shutdown at the end of the month. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
KVNU weather for tonight, mostly clear, low around 50. Slight chance of a shower or thunderstorm in the afternoon on Wednesday. Partly cloudy skies, high around 80. And then back to mostly sunny, upper 70s on Thursday. It's been to 81. It's 80 right now at KVNU. Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance can get you out of insurance rate creep. Auto Owners Insurance and Quality First. Call 435-752-0101. And you can always get more news at CashValleyDaily.com.
Get ready for the ultimate home improvement event of the season. The Logan Fall Home Show is back. Mark your calendars, September 15th and 16th at the Cache County Event Center. Discover unbeatable deals on all your home improvement projects and meet local remodeling experts under one roof. Admission is free, so bring your friends and family. Doors open Friday from noon to 8 p.m. and Saturday from 10 a.m. until 6. Visit LoganHomeshow.com for more details.
Get prepared for the hunting season at the newly remodeled Mount Logan Laundry. Bring your hunting gear, sleeping bags, and coats into Mount Logan Laundry and use one of their 10 new 55 or 80-pound washers and 16 50-pound dryers. Dirty sleeping bags or quilts are no match for these new machines. Plus, also, they have free Wi-Fi and drop-off service. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town. Find them at 5th East and 9th North in Logan or in Brigham City on the corner of 1st East and 7th South.
Welcome to KVNU's welcome back to KVNU's For the People. A couple more folks chiming in here on the Rocky Mountain Power story, and let me just clarify: this is not decided right now. They haven't decided to jack your rates up to pay off the lawsuits they've lost for negligence in other states, but I'm still angry that they considered it, and also that paperwork was filed to make it a possibility here in Utah without any sort of public announcement. I think that's irresponsible, too. Maybe it's fair to say until they decide to do it, they didn't need to let us know. But Salt Lake Tribune found this through a public records request. No decision has been made, but it has not been ruled out after losing lawsuits in Oregon that Pacific Corp, Rocky Mountain Power's parent company, may seek to recoup costs of the awards in those lawsuits they've lost for negligence. Again, a jury found them negligent, meaning they could have avoided it by not being negligent. And that may be as high as $11 billion total, all said and done, because this is an open window class action, meaning people can sign on, I think, for the next year, maybe two, and receive some of the damage benefits awarded by the jury and the judge. So it's estimated maybe $11 billion all said and done, and they're going to try and recover those costs, possibly on your power bills. I don't think it's right. I think they need to find a way to absorb those lost lawsuits into their profit margins, and recognizing, again, we can't afford to have one of these companies go out of business. We kind of need utilities, right? But there's got to be other options other than just burying it in the power bills of ratepayers, because, again, you, the company, were found, someone in the company made a bad decision, and you were found negligent by a jury. That is not your ratepayer's fault. That is a decision that was made internally. So just to clarify that, because we did have a few listeners chiming in through the news break wanting to know when this starts. The decision hasn't been officially made. The Salt Lake Tribune just found that they'd filed paperwork with state regulators to open the door for raising power rates to pay off these lawsuits they'd lost in Oregon and California. Not a good look, to say the least. But on a brighter note, and speaking, of climate change, which kind of factors into all of this, if you want an explanation on this, I won't go through it here. But basically, cement has a huge carbon footprint. There are a couple of reasons for that. Some really cool news out of Texas. A 40-year veteran of construction materials, of the construction materials industry, basically a contractor, named Bill Yersley, a little while ago quietly started a company called Terra CO2 Technology. And he was laughed at. People said this will never work. His goal was to come up with cement that had either a reduced or, he promised, possibly zero when it came to the carbon footprint. There were ways to offset the production. He said, look, cement is never going away. It has a huge carbon footprint. We know that. It's contributing to, the climate change issues that are plaguing us all. But we're never going to stop using cement, and not fully. It may be reduced. We may see, a return more to wooden-based designs because wood is a replenishable resource with a in some cases negative carbon footprint. Trees absorb carbon. But he said, look, cement's always going to be a part of construction in some way or another. So he decided after retiring he was going to start this company and just start looking into it. Today, Canary Media, this is an online media organization that specializes in journalism towards both startups and startups that are doing something to minimize or negate the impact of climate change where possible. And today, Terra CO2 announced, according to Canary Media, that it has actually done what everyone said was impossible. Mearsley says his facility in Texas is producing 240,000 metric tons a year of a supplemental cementing material that, and he said construction will start next year working with a company called Asher Materials, which is a Texas-based, construction asset management firm that does a lot of construction all over the West. And he said that their product works. It is a carbon-free additive that can be added to rock, to crushed rock, is exactly the same in the end as far as, the amount of weight you can sit on it, the way it'll stand up in earthquakes and windstorms and tornadoes and all of that. It's basically the same as cement, but this additive can be mixed in instead of actually making cement. And he said, get this, not only is it carbon neutral, it's about 1/10 of the cost of cement. This guy, in his retirement, just got extremely rich. And what I think is cool about this story is, so here's this guy that worked as a contractor for 40 years in Texas. He obviously knew something. He said he was going to retire and go start this company, and everyone told him he was an idiot. He says that. He said even some of my longtime friends in the construction trades said, man, you're an idiot. That's an exact quote from the story. But he said, I felt like this had never been fully explored. So he said, basically what they found is that, concrete in general, cement, is responsible for about 8% of human-caused carbon dioxide emissions worldwide. That's the guesstimate, roughly. And he said through his concrete production process that he's developed, they reduced reliance on some of the things that make it have such a large carbon footprint. This is huge. So this all comes down to a science I don't understand and won't try to explain that involves something called SCMs, lower emissions from concrete production, because they reduce reliance on a certain type of cement that is one of the big drivers. And these major cement and concrete companies in Texas, Arizona, Colorado have all basically said, we want to buy in. They use millions of tons of these SCMs that are mostly fly ash, as I understand it, from coal plants, steel mill slag, and more. And they put them in to reduce the production of the concrete's carbon footprint. And then it also strengthens the material. It's stronger than regular cement. And it works. I think this is so cool. But again, what I love about this story is everyone told him that he was dumb for doing this, that he was a failure. So Terracotta CO2's SCM, the additive that makes crushed rock cement, or concrete as we know it, is made of silicate rocks, granite, basalt, alluvial sounding gravel, which sounds way more fancy than it is, and even what they call flood gravel, and then some clay sand mixtures. It's basically nothing produced. It's just mixing. It's a concoction of it's a mixture of elements that required zero carbon footprint to make. And he said silica rock, one of the reasons he thought to pursue this is that nobody had ever tried this before. And he said one of the reasons is that it was considered to be, a weaker, it was going to produce something weaker. And he said, I just knew we could figure out a way around this. Now, he won't say how they got around this. He has allowed state investigators in Texas to verify that he's doing this in a completely carbon neutral way, that there is no, air quality damaging output of his process. But he won't say what the proprietary percentages are. So there's obviously a certain percentage of silicate, sand, rock, gravel, glacial flood gravel, clay, and sand. There's some perfect mixture that he's come up with. But in tests that were done late last week and in the press release put out today, it held up just like regular concrete. And it will be a game changer. And again, this guy was told by everyone he was wrong. He couldn't do it. He should just go enjoy retirement. Read a book, he said, one friend told him. And now he's about to be one of the richest men on the planet, I would predict. Check it out. Great story from Canaria Media. On the other side, this is one that I've been following pretty closely. This was a story of the Ogden City Police Department and what, at least at face value, looked like a quota system that they were using to evaluate officers when it came to the numbers of citations written. The problem there is, as of 2018, quota systems in law enforcement in Utah are illegal. The state outlawed them in a 2018 piece of legislation that was passed and signed by the Governor Herbert at the time. No one's changed that since. So, obviously, when Fox 13 News did an investigation that, again, seemed to credibly suggest that Ogden City Police Department was actually using a quota system, it was controversial. State lawmakers got involved. They started asking questions. They haven't said a lot since then until some surprise news today, which is not what everyone expected. I think everyone following the story expected the state lawmakers to say, look, it looks like some law enforcement agencies in Utah are violating the 2018 ban on police quotas for citations. Instead, what lawmakers said just today is we might be revisiting that ban on quotas. Maybe it was a bad idea. I don't think anyone expected this from them, but that's what they said. Why they're saying it, what it means, and what the Utah Attorney General's office has to say contrary to some of the comments from lawmakers today. All of that coming up right after this.
As the leaves fall, so do the prices at Murdoch Volkswagen. Harvest the best deals during our Get Out and Drive sales event. The summer heat is cooling off, and there's no better time to get out and drive.
Right now, receive 3.9% for 6 years on a new 2023 Tiguan or Taos.
When you walk through our doors, you feel like family. At Murdoch Volkswagen in Logan or online at murdochvw.com.
Call 866-628-3065 or see dealer for complete details. Offer expires 10/2/23.
What if you could come home every day to a peaceful retreat nestled in the mountains? A place that's only minutes from downtown Logan, but offers access to national forests from your own backyard, surrounded by mountains, horse riding, hiking trails, babbling brooks, and more. All this at Maple Creek Ranch, which is now in its fourth and final phase of development. 2.5-acre lots, your own piece of paradise that's remote yet accessible. And road improvements will be completed this summer. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Go to maplecreekranch.net. Maple Creek Ranch, just east of Franklin, Idaho.
The semi-annual Napa Gold filter sale is on now through September 15. You can't beat Napa prices on diesel oils, and more truckloads are on the way. Chevron Delo 15W40, $14.99 a gallon. Valvoline Premium Blue Diesel Oils, 5W40 Synthetic, $23.99 a gallon. 15W40, only $16.99 a gallon. Napa Premium 15W40 Diesel Oil, $12.99 a gallon. Price is good while supplies last. Cash or card only, and no delivery at these prices. Sell ends September 15 at your 5 locally owned Preston to Providence Napa Auto Parts.
UNI Furniture has always been here to give you great value for your money. When it comes to home furnishings, it really is always a better buy at UNI. And right now, UNI is closing out last year's model mattresses. Closeouts on new models and displays too. Memory foam, innerspring, and hybrids from a number of different name brand manufacturers. And ask UNI to show you this popular copper-infused mattress that sleeps cooler. And did you know UNI has a good selection of sheets and mattress protectors too? UNI Furniture, over 90 years in downtown Logan. There's always a better buy at UNI.
Welcome back to KBN News for the People. 2 law enforcement-related stories to follow up on here because we talked about them both on previous shows. I wanted to give everybody some closure, if you remembered those conversations. One is a tragic story for a lot of different reasons. For the officers involved, who it was announced today, it was determined had to do what they did, and I feel like that was pretty obvious as well. Troy Rollins, the district attorney for Davis County, announced today that his office, after a lengthy investigation, 3 months, had determined that officers who used deadly force against a man named Chase Allen in Farmington earlier this year, it was March 1st, in fact, did so with justification. This is just a sad story. Rollins in the press release said the evidence was more than persuasive. There was no reasonable probability of conviction in prosecuting any officers involved. The officers clearly had reasonable, articulable, and objectively verifiable belief that the use of deadly force was necessary to prevent death or serious bodily injuries to themselves or others. Because remember, there were bystanders in this scenario, too. The scenario was a suspected sovereign citizen. What's a sovereign citizen? Think Ammon Bundy, or if you have a QAnon conspiracy theorist in your family. Oftentimes they intersect, but a sovereign citizen, this has been around for a long time, though it's seen some proliferation more so since the QAnon thing got a boost from the former president. But it's basically a sovereign citizen is, and again, this goes back decades, this belief. But it's the belief that you didn't consent to be governed. You weren't there when the Constitution of the United States was signed and written. And so, therefore, the laws don't apply to you. The courts don't apply to you. You don't have to have a driver's license or a license plate to be out on the roadways. That is an actual thing that actual people believe. And again, the entire belief is based off of the fact that they weren't there personally when the Constitution was written and signed, and so they have not consented to be governed. While enjoying, because what are they driving their cars on, right? Roadways. We, as taxpayers who did consent by just being here, we're paying for it. They don't think they should have to. It's just magic, I guess, for them. It's the weirdest thing. I'll be blunt. I don't get it, how it makes sense to anyone. But it is a movement that has been growing a little bit. And there are pockets where it's adhered to here in Utah, and more so even in Idaho. It's believed this young man, tragically, I think 19 years old, 20 years old, sorry, Chad Allen, it's believed because of some of the things he said and the license plate that instigated the interaction with police in the first place. It was a homemade license plate. That's something sovereign citizens do. And there are certain license plates they'll print, and it basically says on there, I didn't consent to be governed by the federal government or the state government. I never signed the Constitution myself, so I don't have to follow your laws. And they'll have a certain plate on their vehicle. You'll see these sometimes in Idaho. I've seen them in Box Elder County. It is illegal. You do have to have a license plate to drive on the taxpayer-funded roadways. This is the social contract that every other person enters into. If you don't want to be a part of the contract, you are welcome to live elsewhere. But the idea that because you didn't ever get asked if you wanted to be a part of the American experience personally, the laws don't apply to you is, it's hard to take seriously. But again, it's suspected that this young man was part of this, this conspiracy group. The body camera footage it's mostly been removed and scrubbed now, but it was widely available there for a while in March. I watched it myself. It's very clear that the young man he's refusing to get out of the vehicle, which now it's tough because you do have a right to refuse certain things. He says to the officer several times, I don't answer questions. That is your right. You do have a constitutional right to tell an officer, I don't answer questions. I'm sorry, but I don't answer questions. You want to be respectful. They're just doing their jobs, right? But still, you do have a right to say that. That may mean that you get arrested and taken to the station, but you have a right to refuse to answer any questions, including, your identity. Again, if you refuse to identify yourself, next thing might be handcuffs and a ride to the station where they'll sort it out. But you do have that right. And the young man is invoking that constitutionally protected right. But at a certain point, he becomes threatening in the body cam video, and they ask him to exit the vehicle, and he says no. And then it's very clear he's reaching for a weapon. And I believe at a certain point, he tells them he has a weapon, and then he reaches for it. They were concerned about bystanders, Rollins says, after interviewing the officers, and of course themselves. And as he reached for the weapon, they felt they had no other option because they felt that there would be only one reason he was reaching for that weapon after they'd had a lengthy conversation already outside of his vehicle, asking him to exit the vehicle for his behavior, which seemed threatening and kind of erratic. You can make the argument the officer should have just recognized the sovereign citizen plate and let him go on about his way, because who's he really hurting by not licensing his car? Get in a car accident and you quickly, with someone who is uninsured or unlicensed, and you quickly find out who gets hurt in that situation. It's you, the victim. So there are, costs to people just deciding the rules don't apply to them that affect people who aren't them. But other than that argument, I think it's pretty sound judgment on the DA's part here, and it's just sad, completely unavoidable. And I know sometimes the household and family budget gets tight, but it's not exactly expensive, super expensive. Even in my poorest years as a college student, I could afford the registration on my vehicle. And why invite the interaction with police? I don't get it. Anyway, second law enforcement-related story we'll wrap up on here today. Again, not a lot to say about this right now other than what was said today that should be noted by every one of our listeners, and you should watch where this goes. But a story by Fox 13 earlier this year led to a lot of scrutiny of Ogden City Police Department when it appeared they were using quotas to evaluate officers. Their defense is, look, we've got to evaluate officers. How many tickets they write is part of that evaluation. By the way, to meet the expectations, it was 2 tickets a week. Not a big deal. But it is illegal as of 2018 to have a quota requirement or expectation for law enforcement agencies in Utah. The state law passed in 2018 outlawed that practice. So, big question, is this a quota? And if it is, does it violate state law? And if so, what should happen? Lawmakers said, we are going to dig into this. The surprise, though, is today they said, not what everyone expected, which is we believe they were using a quota and they need to stop. Instead, lawmakers today said, we might revisit that quota ban law. Keep an eye on this one in the upcoming session, to say the least. That's our show for today. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Dave Ramsey next here on KVNU Logan.